Horse bananas, Bao bucks, and why 41% of independent restaurants are using virtual brands. That's all ahead on this week's Monday Minute. Monday Minute works like this. We're going to ask each other 5 questions about the latest headlines of what's going on in the world of restaurants, off-premise, and technology here at the National Restaurant Show. So first things first, Meredith, we're here in the National Restaurant Association booth. We might get kicked off at any moment because I feel like we perhaps might be encroaching upon their space, but we're having a great time, right? Here we are at one of the largest restaurant conferences in the world. It's crazily busy. There are hundreds, if not thousands of exhibits. We haven't got round it all. Are you having a good time?
Yeah, it's fantastic. Of course, fantastic to be back in person. It has been a restaurant association show in quite a while. And you're right, there are more booths than one could possibly get to. We've really been focused, of course, on the tech ones and occasionally a few snacks here and there. But it's really been great to see all the innovation, to see everyone back in the same place.
And you know what? We've really loved hearing from each of you. We've had so many fans come up to us and say, love listening to the Monday Minute. So let's do what we usually do, get on to talking about the things that have been catching our attention. And let's start by talking about our focus this week with regards to our exhibits that we've been doing. We've been on the conference scene ourselves and talking about ghost kitchens and virtual brands, 3 workshops over the course of the year. One of the things that we actually looked at this week was an article where Technomic have said 41% of independent restaurants are now embracing virtual brands. And that really surprised us, right?
It really surprised me. I did not think that high of a percentage of independent restaurants already have virtual brands in place. And according to the survey, they surveyed 350 operators in partnership with Grubhub. They found that 41% already offer virtual brands, which was an astounding number to me. I thought it was going to be much lower than that. But I think shows you the power of the restaurant industry and how innovative it is that they find something and they spread it around and they share it, they get on it. Pretty amazing. And then they said a few other things about those virtual restaurants, which were interesting.
They did 68% Covenant editions, which I think is fascinating. 91% of those attendees said customer data is important, which was more than the 88% that said commission-free ordering is that important. So the fact that now independents are also saying, and this was 350 independents, by the way, were saying that actually customer data is critical, brings joy to my heart. I was speaking to a CMO of a restaurant group in Saudi Arabia last week, and he said to me that customer data is like the new oil. And I think that phrase really sums up what is so critical about first-party ordering, but also how to use this customer data to build that digital dialogue with your customer base.
Also interesting was that 92% of them said branded experiences were important. I think virtual restaurants in the last couple of years during the pandemic got a little bit of a, I don't know if bad rap is the right word, but they were just very functionally named, right? Like, it's just wings. They have wings. Mr. Beast burger. They have burgers. Very direct, very literal, weren't always necessarily what you would call a branded experience. And 92% of these independent restaurants who have virtual brands said actually the brand matters. I think we'll see more of that, learn more of that as time goes on. But
yeah, the last thing I'll say about this is a third of these respondents, right? So they said some really positive things that we've heard there, but a third of them only have a direct ordering channel, which
yeah,
I think
brands are important. I think data is important, but I haven't gotten around to making a direct channel yet. Interesting. Okay, so there's some opportunity there for all these tech companies.
And when we reflect on the exhibitors, one of the things that I think both Meredith and I have been a little surprised about, maybe encouraged by, is that a lot of the parties here are saying we do first party order and we do loyalty, we do employee scheduling. There's a lot of that happening, right?
There is a lot, at least claiming to be all in one type solutions here, which is very notably different from a few years ago where it was a lot of point solutions. Certainly the industry has to go this way. There's been a lot of acquisition activity and it has been overwhelming and confusing for anyone. I think absolutely we're going to end up there. I don't know how robust all these different solutions are. Of course, in every industry, there's always the argument between having that all-in-one one-stop shop and having the best of breed. And at least right now, it seems like everyone is in a race to be that one-stop shop.
And here's one last comment. For those of you that are in the restaurant tech environment, I've been around to many of the booths and I've asked you, how do you differentiate yourselves against your competitors? What is it about your product set that actually stands you out from the rest? And I didn't get a great answer. So I think there's some opportunity for us to be able to help restaurant owner operators in particular understand your identity, understand your USP, if you will, and really help those operators understand why they should come with you as opposed to the competition. Anyway, that's enough with that. Let's talk about some of the other headlines that we've got this week. And the first one I want to talk about is an article from the BBC. And that was talking about the way in which we may be eating together in 30 years' time. And so this is clearly quite important right now because there's a lot of talk about the way in which food supply is a major problem around the world. Of course, the Ukraine crisis being a part of that. And the BBC was saying, well, as a result of this, how is this going to change the way in which people are going to be eating in the year 2050? And I got a few interesting data points here, Meredith. I know you like a few data points.
I do like the data points.
90% of our calories come from 15 crops.
That is mind blowing. I when I read that, I thought, no way. No way.
I know, it's nuts. And then over 7,000 edible plants in the world, only 417 of them are widely grown and used for food. That shows us, though, that there's a lot of potential out there. And then this whole idea around a study that was taken into account in London, I think it's called the Kew Institute of Food. They were talking about the importance of diversifying the way in which we eat and how that's going to actually help with alleviating hunger, how it's going to help with biodiversity loss, and also adapting to climate change.
I think there's a tension here, though. Also, there's a reason why our calories are so concentrated, and it's because in those specific crops, we just get a really well-developed supply chain all the way from seed all the way through to how it's used at the restaurant level. And those things become so robust. They have such massive economies of scale that, smaller crops can't compete, right? So there's a tension here between, yes, we want to be more diverse, but also the economies of scale of the things that we know how to grow really, really well. Generally, economically, we're going to beat out the other things.
The good news is there are new fruits coming to the market. I didn't know of a dragon fruit 10 years or so ago. Now there's things called a pandanus tree fruit, which is supposed to be grown in the Pacific Islands of the Philippines. There's something called a false banana. I haven't got a picture of it, so Google it. But they're saying, no, maybe not. No, good point. And then, of course, beans. They're saying beans and wild cereals are going to be very much part of the future food set going forward. Check that one out below. The next thing, Meredith, I thought would be good for us to talk about is the Toast Trends report that was talking to some of the items that were coming out. And first of all, the good news is that on-premise sales are up relative to the first quarter of 2021. And actually, a lot of that has been coming from the West and the Northeast of the United States, with growth of about 38 to 37% respectively. And a lot of it is coming from the big cities, the San Franciscos, the San Diegos, the LAs, the Seattles, and the New Yorks.
Okay, we're coming back online.
Which is great news. We've been talking about the growth of catering with people going back to the office. I think this is, exciting news to be able to see that, as we've often said, it's not going to be a world of just off-premise. On-premise clearly has a huge part to play, and it's exciting, right? Few other little interesting bits for you. Who tips the most? We live in California, and we perhaps need to tip a little bit more. We are the worst state for tipping.
Really? That's surprising.
Yes, absolutely. And
maybe because everything else is so expensive.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that is. Well, Indiana is the best state. So for those of you in the restaurant industry that would like higher tips, head to Indiana. They tip the most. And guess what? They also tip more when being in an on-premise setting as opposed to off-premise. So maybe that's not such a surprise because a lot of people are tipping in an off-premise setting before they've even received the food. Where in an on-premise setting, it's usually in the aftermath of the
they're also
experience.
tipping someone who's largely anonymous, right? You don't really know who your driver is. Like DoorDash might tell you their name or show you a picture of them, but you don't know them. Whereas if you're sitting in a restaurant for an hour and a half, you probably talk to your server 5-6 times. Like you feel like it's a real person. You get to know them. So I would imagine that has some impact as well.
Absolutely. Okay, well, let's move on to another article that drew our attention this week. Bao have been in the news alongside Paytronix, and they're introducing something called Bao Bucks. What is this about?
Oh my goodness. So this is, I think, in a lot of ways goes back to the very first article, right? So this is your first virtual brand saying, hey, even though our restaurants are widely distributed, our fulfillment partners are all over the country, our restaurants are actually maybe many different brands, we're going to have one common first party and loyalty platform facing the consumer, regardless of who's fulfilling it on the back end. So this is at least the first one we've seen of a virtual restaurant brand bringing a loyalty program to the front.
So I really like this because I think one of the things that's really important is that a lot of virtual brands tend to actually just create transactions in a third-party environment. Now, What Bao are doing, they're working with the DoorDash storefront products alongside the Paytronix loyalty model. And I think that's showing that actually virtual brands also can demonstrate a loyalty component. Now, for them, it's a dollar spent gains a 1 point, I believe, and after 700 points or so, they can use $7 worth of credit. So whether that mechanism is going to work, I think time will tell. But I think it's really encouraging. Again, don't forget, Bao are one of the fastest growing restaurant concepts in the US. They've already got 600 locations across the US, Canada. I think they're going into the UK and Mexico as well. And again, it's the simplicity of that offer that I think resonates with the customer base. So congratulations to Jeff Alexander, Andrew Robbins over at Paytronix and the team for making the steps forward into this space, and hopefully more to come in the months ahead. Okay, well, I think that is it for this week. We are going to get back to the show. Hopefully we'll see some of you guys over here in Chicago. It is certainly a great experience. Hopefully those of you that haven't come will come next year, or perhaps those of you that are further afield in the world, maybe in Dubai, we'll see you in November. But we always love hearing from you. Please put your comments below. Any questions, anything you'd like to agree with, disagree with, please put your comments below and we'll certainly come back to you on that. But until next week, thank you for listening, and we appreciate, as ever, you tuning in. The Monday Minute is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Watch us on YouTube and follow us on all our social media Learn.Delivery channels. Thanks for listening.
All right, let's get out of your